You're listening to Kill Cliff's Hazard Ground podcast, with service members from across the military sharing their stories of combat and survival. And now, here's your host, Mark Zinno.
Welcome into the Hazard Ground podcast. As always, we appreciate you joining us each and every week. Before we get to this week's episode, one I'm very excited about, get to talk to another one of our Air Force combat controllers. These guys are complete badasses. We'll get to them in just a moment, but want to take a couple of quick moments to remind you about our promotion with Amazon as the holidays are coming up. And if you have to do some holiday shopping or any regular shopping through Amazon, make sure you guys go to our website, hazardground.com, click on the Amazon button at the bottom of the homepage or on the sponsors tab. It'll redirect you right to Amazon. You do all your shopping. We get a percentage of what you guys spend, and then we'll donate a percentage of that back to some of the great charities and organizations featured here on the Hazard Ground. Works also from your smartphone. Very simple. Keeps all your credit card information, directs you right to the app. So it's really easy, really user-friendly, and a great way for you to help out veterans all across America from the comfort of your own home and on your smartphone. As well, while you're on that smartphone, follow us on all the social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Hazard Ground Podcast. Keep up with the show. You can leave us messages there, guest suggestions, everything. So follow us on social as well. Please continue to leave Apple reviews. In fact, I met somebody the other day who was a fan of my podcast and listens every single week. And I asked, did you do your Apple Podcast review yet? And he's like, no, I got to do it. Please do the Apple Podcast review because it helps to grow the Hazard Ground community as we try to get closer to the top 100 Apple podcasts. And you guys certainly can help out that way. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And as well, our partners and great friends at KillCliff. Make sure you download the KillCliff TV app because you can get all of our podcasts there as well. And don't forget about killcliff.com. Great, amazing, all-natural energy drinks, including their new, and I'm holding it right here just for you to see there, KillCliff Octane CBD Killer Cliffsicle. This is one of their newest drinks out. It's fantastic. The flavor is amazing. Make sure you guys check out all their CBD products. Clean energy all the way through KillCliff. I drink these before my workout, after my workout, all the time. They are fantastic. Again, killcliff.com. Check them out there. All right, let's get on to this week's episode and our guest who spent 30 years in the United States Air Force, 25 of it in the special operations community as a combat controller. He's got over 10 deployments, 11, 12, somewhere in the range of a dozen deployments. It's too many to count throughout his career. And he was awarded a Silver Star for his actions in Afghanistan in the very beginning of the war during the invasion. In his post-military career, he was the former director of operations for the Special Operations Warrior Foundation. And he is currently the CEO and founder of Project One Vet at a Time. He's also the executive director of the Patriot Fund. He is Command Chief Master Sergeant retired William Markham joining us on the Hazard Ground podcast. It's a long title and a lengthy resume, William, but welcome and thank you for being here.
Hey, Mark, thank you very much. Yeah, a lot of titles in there, but what it all comes down to is service members after their service still continuing to fight for the rights and benefits of the veterans and their families.
100%. You know, and I said it in the intro. I got to tell you, my bias as an Army guy comes through. And the more I do this podcast and the more that I talk to Air Force combat controller guys, like I always kind of knew you guys were on the periphery of being badasses, but it's legit badasses. And I was having this conversation with a Navy guy of mine, and I was explaining to him, I was telling him that I was going to interview you for the show. And I am so like ground combat oriented thinking, right? Like in my experience, you know, I'm always worried about the ground in front of me. And as I, grow senior in rank and they start to send me more military courses, you learn about a three-dimensional battlefield, and they always talk to you about it and how important it is. But the idea of what you guys do, simply put, when chaos is going on around you, literally, that you have the patience, the time, the training, and the skill to call in precision airstrikes and support people on the battlefield, to me, it's like a skill I can't comprehend, man. Like, I mean that in all sincerity. It's just something that would not be in my skill set to be able to not have a fat trigger finger or not be shaking or whatever, because my mind just works 1,000 miles a minute like my mouth does, as you can see. But it's just, I just want to tip my cap to you guys. I mean, it really is. It's such an important job in the military, and we often forget about you guys in the Air Force. But really, it's just, it's one of those jobs that they don't really tell you about when they talk about the Air Force at all.
Yeah, it was, I knew nothing about it when I joined the Air Force. I absolutely knew nothing about it. The only thing I really knew about was a little bit of pararescue, going through basic training. But the medical side, I mean, the sight of blood makes me sick. Any type of medical training, T-CCC, anything, self-aid and buddy care. Man, I get sick to my stomach. I can barely get through it. I used to have our trainers, pencil whip me through that stuff just so I could pass it. But yeah, combat control was pretty quiet. It wasn't until unfortunately the accident in Ramstein in 1988. I got to meet some combat controllers when I got over to Germany, and just some cool dudes walking around with some nice sunglasses and
it's always the sunglasses
and a polo shirt. And
it's always the sunglasses, right?
Yeah,
you always know an operator by his sunglasses for whatever reason. Whether it was the M frames back in the beginning days of it, or now you get the cool ones. It's always the glasses.
Yeah, we'd always see the 10th Special Forces group coming up from Bad Tolz, flying out of Ramstein to go do great, wonderful things for countries over in Europe, and it was always a combat controller or pararescueman assigned to them. And man, I had to find out what they did, and I was like, man, I got to do that, because counting rivets on B-52s and KC-135s and walking the gap and working with people that really weren't in the same fundamental mindset as me, and I had to find something different. But yeah, combat control was where it's at. And you had said something about being a badass, and Mark, man, you're just part of the team, and that's what makes special operations, and that's what makes teamwork so well. Is you're just one of the guys or one of the gals that are bringing that specialty to the fight. And everybody's got their specialty, everybody's got something that they know a little bit more than the other person, but you cross train that information across the field, and man, you got a highly effective, motivated team that gets to bring the bear of everything we have within our power systems and our weapon systems to the fight.
No, 100%. I've said that exact same thing several times on the show. I was fortunate enough to deploy with Green Berets. I'm not tabbed, but I just got lucky and got an assignment. And one of the biggest takeaway I've learned from that, which was the highlight of my military career, because I've said it 100 times, if you laid out all the assignments in Iraq for a mid-grade captain and said, pick one, Mark, I couldn't have picked a better one on my own. I just got very, very lucky. But I learned the value of being a role player. I learned the value of your piece of the pie. And I say this all the time, that, everybody's got their piece of the pie. Somebody's piece may be bigger. Somebody's piece may have more importance, but you don't make the whole pie without every piece of the pie. So own your piece of the pie, whatever it is, and make sure that you're doing your piece of the pie. And like you said, it's just one part of the whole thing that makes us successful. So agree 100%. But you signed up all the way back in the mid 80s, right? Like you got into this thing way before 9/11.
Oh man, it was June 9th, 1986. It was my 18th birthday, the day after graduation. We just heard about that unfortunate, parade, that Christmas parade accident and tragedy that happened in Waukesha, Wisconsin. That was my hometown.
Oh wow.
We had 3 foundries in town and an asphalt business. So that was my future coming out of high school. I wasn't going to go to college. I didn't have the grades for it. I didn't have the motivation for it. I just wanted to, at the time, join the closest thing to being a civilian. And my counselor and the recruiter said, well, then you need to join the Air Force. And so 18th birthday, one day out of high school, joined the Air Force.
So you had no idea you were getting into, though. Nobody else in your family.
I had no idea. I was going to be an inventory specialist, a supply guy. And, that's how you find out all the new gear is in on a team. You go see the supply guy and he's walking around with the new watch and you're like, oh, new watches are. And he's like, well, I took the last one. So yeah, I was going to be one of those guys, and unfortunately failed the test to be a supply guy and ended up being a cop.
Oh yeah. Security forces, good old stuff. So when and how did you learn about combat control and what it was?
Yeah, I was stationed in California, up in Sacramento at Mather Air Force Base, got an assignment over to Ramstein, Germany, and late of 1988, got over there in 1989, right after the Italian jet crash during the air show. And there was just a lot of like special operations going on at the time. We were getting ready to kick off for Panama. We were getting ready to kick off for the Gulf War. And then, Ramstein and Frankfurt were the hub of air operations, and you're out there, guarding those C5s, those C41s at the time. So obviously I'm dating myself. But these 10 Special Forces Group guys would come up from Bad Tolz, Germany, and the combat controllers from the Rhein-Main Air Base, and the PJs coming over from England as, Air Force Special Operations. It was unheard of. The silent professionals back in the day when people actually had to be silent about what they did, or, they got booted out of the military. But I met these guys, and I was just like, man, this is something I would really like to do. And found an old first sergeant, and he was a former combat controller, Roby Robertson, one of the first African-American combat controllers at that. He told me all about it. He showed me a recruiting video. It was basically the same thing that the pararescue guys did through their training, but they were certified air traffic controllers. They were the air-to-ground interface, just like you were talking about on the battlefield. That 3D picture on the battlefield, being that airman and providing that air-to-ground integration. It just really, it just really spoke to me, and it's something I trained hard for. I was able to complete the training, and then right around my 5th year in the Air Force, completed the training and became a combat controller.
So once you did that, did you have any idea at the time what you were in for from the standpoint of, this is, again, the early 90s, we're well through Vietnam, right? The Gulf War was in the blink of an eye, all things considered, which you missed, correct? You didn't go to Saudi for the Gulf?
No.
So we're at a time now where it's like, okay, well, what's your mission? Do you have an idea of what the next couple of years of your career are going to be like, or are you just happy that you're not in security forces anymore?
Well, I was truly happy I wasn't in security forces, and nothing against our defenders, man. They are the peacekeepers of the Air Force, the gateway. Without those guys and gals, our aircraft, our service members, on the base wouldn't be safe. And today they got some incredible leaders that are doing incredible things for them. So I'm not knocking the cop career field at all. They are truly professionals, within our ranks and within our profession of arms. But man, I wanted to do something else. And once I got into combat control, the biggest thing was just trying not to get my ass handed to myself. I was a cocky young airman. I wasn't the best airman. I wasn't the best human. I wasn't the best father, and I wasn't obviously the best husband. And so I just wanted to be good at something. And so I just tried to be a good combat controller. I would keep my mouth shut, keep my ears open, and listen to the veterans, that had been in Desert Storm, the veterans that had been to Grenada, the veterans, and service guys, my team sergeants that had jumped into Panama, and then just did great things. While I was going through combat diver school down in Key West, ironic story with Greg McCormick, the team sergeant of 555 Triple Nickel, when we went into Afghanistan, but we were swim team. We were paired as a swim team together, and Mogadishu kicked off, and we just had a big veterans charity golf event in Naples for the Patriot Fund, which benefited a bunch of the other veteran nonprofits, including Project OVAT. But we had Kenny Thomas. Kenny Thomas was assigned to the 75th Ranger Battalion. At that time, he was our guest speaker and a good personal friend of mine. But he started talking about Mogadishu, and it took me back to being in Key West and going through dive school, combat diver school, and like, oh man, we missed it. I've missed the Gulf War. I've missed Panama. I've missed Mogadishu. Like, I'm going to be a peacetime special operator, which is, kind of like the cop that never got to draw his gun or face a situation. And
or like the guy in the minors who never got called up to the majors, right?
yeah. I was, going to be on the minor league. I was going to be that airman and that NCO going out to the drop zone and, working the drop zone out at Ranger Camp, Camp Rudder, jumping in the Rangers from mountain phase into jungle phase, doing the JRXs and the JCTs and Ranger Eageries and deploying with the SEALs. And, is this going to be a training mission for the next 20 years? I would probably get out at 20 years and, retire, hopefully a master sergeant the way I was going, probably a staff sergeant. And, man, it's just funny how life goes and the people you get connected to. And, being that one airman attached to a Navy SEAL team, an Army Special Forces team, or the Rangers, or, with the government agency, it's just, you're your own boss, and your work ethic is, what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it.
All right. So without, I guess we kind of can fast forward 9 years to 9/11 from when you get into the combat controller world. And again, I know you just kind of mentioned some of the things that you did do along the way, but where are you on 9/11 and kind of the background and what happens immediately after?
Well, just Mark, just two things real quick.
Sure.
Prior to 9/11, I think every operator kind of makes a name for themselves in something that they do or something that they've done or the people they've been associated with. And right before 9/11, we had the war in Bosnia going on. We had Liberia and Africa going on. And I was just really fortunate to be one of those guys in the wrong place at the wrong time, and got to go over to Liberia and open up the embassy over there to get a bunch of neo-vax, out of there with the 10th group guys out of Europe. And then, Bosnia, the Ron Brown crash, the Secretary of Commerce, his plane crashed, just so happened right after Hillary Clinton got off it. And, apparently he was going to say some bad things about Hillary, and the jet went down. And I guess I'm retired long enough now. I can state my opinion like that. But, we had to go in, me and two pararescuemen, fast rope into a mountainside to, identify and recover, 33 dead bodies.
Wow.
So kind of established that, I'm not tooting my horn or anything like that, but I established myself that, man, I can be depended on, and, in the work environment, not in a personal or social environment, I couldn't be depended on, but definitely in the work environment. And I had great leaders like Kurt Buller, just incredible leaders that I looked up to, and incredible team sergeants that I looked up to, Mike Ramos and peers, Doug McClure, Doug Moore, man, just great guys. And then that kind of led to 9/11. 9/11 was kind of a fluke. We found ourselves training with Marine warrant officers out in Tonopah and up in North Vegas, and we were doing, really kind of what we were getting ready for Afghanistan. We were riding mule. We were doing high altitude opening jumps into, the foothills. We were going long distances to do close air support on a direct high value target. And this started in April before 9/11. And then once we'd come back from that training and boom, the planes hit the towers, plane hits the Pentagon, plane goes into a field in Pennsylvania. And man, we didn't know what we were going to do, where we were going to do it, or how we were going to do it, but we knew we were going to go do something. And at that point, I think you look back at that 20 years ago, and not only our nation, but man, our military, you look at the joint training now, we're better than we've ever been. And it's because of 9/11, and good, bad, or indifferent, however you feel about that. Our military is the best it's ever been because of 9/11. And when we say joint, we truly say joint. And it was airmen, sailors, soldiers, coming together as one and going and putting some heat on people that needed it.
No, and certainly, I mean, again, I would point out, as you said, the going back to your time in Bosnia and the time where you've proved yourself. I have learned that about a lot of operators in general. They all want the opportunity, because it is a rite of passage to sort of be given responsibility within a team. It's so hard to get there, right? And once you actually get to that spot, all you want to do is show all your teammates that you actually belong there, that you're not just somebody who could pass a course where, for all intents and purposes, everything is relatively safe. You want the opportunity to prove and download all the knowledge that you have. And so I by all means, I certainly get that. That's not patting yourself on the back or telling a story that people need to hear. There is that real thing within the special operations community, whether it's SEALs, Green Berets, whatever it may be. All those guys want the opportunity once they get there to show that they are worth their medal and can be trusted, because honestly, that's how you guys operate, right? Like that level of trust needs to be earned. It doesn't matter how many schools you went to and what you've learned. Guys want to know that ultimately when push comes to shove, that you'll do the right thing when chaos is surrounding you. So I certainly understand that.
Yeah. Anytime you come off a target or you come off a training mission and you have a you have a mentor or a boss that you completely idolize or look up to. And if they can look at you and say, hey, you did a good job, but, and give you that critical feedback to make yourself better, that's what you want. And that's, like you said, that I think that's what everyone wants. I don't think that just falls to an operator. I think that falls to everybody in our combat support roles and, to being a civilian. And nothing against our civilian population out there. If there was a better selection and assessment process for you, the world would be a better place. But
sure,
we want to come off that training exercise or that target. And, we want to be able to give each other critical feedback to make ourselves better. But when you get that mentor or that leader that you really respect and they look at you in the eye and tell you that you did a good job and then give you that critical feedback, that's rewarding in itself. There's no decoration, there's no rank, there's no money out there that could ever replace that.
100%. All right. So 9/11 happens and you are now quickly thrust into the fight. What are you hearing in the days, weeks after? Obviously, as I said at the outset, you're there for the invasion, which was, I think, around October 7th when it initially started. But what are you initially hearing, and do you have an idea of how quickly you're going to be moving?
Well, I was at the 23rd Special Tactics Squadron at the time out of Herbert Field, and our teams were kind of poised to set up combat search and rescue with a ground force. So probably team up with our special forces partners in country. We deployed over to Karshi Counterbad K2. We were one of the first aircraft in. Myself and a couple other teammates, Dennis Bernier, Pat Ward, we established the airhead there at K2, started landing C-17s and, bringing in the force. Our unit immediately established the combat search and rescue stature. Task Force 160th came in with their everything from the DAPs to 47s to 60s. 5th Special Forces Group showed up, immediately went into isolation. And we kind of stood up ready to, pull out any bomber pilot or jet pilot, that may have gone down in Afghanistan. But there was still another turn, and it was called unconventional warfare, where we would put in small groups of special operations teams into Afghanistan, teamed up with their CIA counterparts, and then teamed up with the Northern Alliance. And this had already been in the works for, a couple of years now, because the agency had been in country, living out of the Panjshir Valley for some time. And my mentors, my leaders that I completely respected, I don't know if it was maybe a way to get rid of me, but they called me into our kind of our C2, our headquarters tent, and they said, hey, Charlie Mike, that was my operating initials, we're going to send you in with we're going to tie you up with 5th Special Forces Group Team. You're going to be the time we called it SOTAC, Special Operations Terminal Attack Controller. Now the term is JTAC, Joint Terminal Attack Controller. But you're going to be the SOTAC assigned to that team to provide air support. And good luck. And wasn't sure if that was their way to try to get rid of me for all the shenanigans I had put them through in years past and the crappy airman that I used to be. But I went over to an isolation tent, walked in the tent, and got teamed up with the famous triple nickel. And man, it changed my life. Like I said, I ran into Greg McCormick, who was the team sergeant, who happened to be my swim buddy going through dive school in 1993. And immediately the bona fides was established, because Greg looked at everybody and said, remember the guy I told you about pulling me through the water going through dive school the entire time? That's him. And I had a fellow Waukesha, Wisconsin, Scott Zastro on the team. And then I had gone through Halo Jump Master with another former member, Frank Gagliardo, our intel guy, our Fox on the team. So, there's still butt sniffing, as we bring on enabling forces and supporters, there's always going to be the butt sniffing of what's going on. But
right. That
was it. And we established and started briefing. And by God's goodwill, we were selected as the first team to go into Afghanistan. And man, it was was surreal,
Right.
Scary, but surreal.
So let's kind of set the scene as you get there. Because ultimately, again, the events leading up to, as I said at the outset, you'd be awarded a Silver Star for. So you end up going to where first? Like I guess from your home base in the United States, do you go somewhere first and then move towards the Middle East, or how does it kind of all go?
Yeah, we finally deployed out of Herbert Field, Florida, up in the Panhandle. We get over to Spain. I think we landed in Spain. We were stuck in Spain. It was a C5 cruise, so the crew obviously wanted to take in the sights and tours and the women and alcohol of Spain, and so we were stuck there for a couple of days. And I say that jokingly. I love my Air Force crew members because they got the best job in the Air Force. And then we get over to K2. We land. It was a C-17. I'm sorry. We take a C-17, and by about the fourth day into the deployment, we land at K2, and then from K2 we spent a couple weeks there, and then I believe it was October 13th or 14th, and
I'm just sort of curious, Will, real quick. When you're flying over to Spain, or when you're flying from Spain to K2, and that's Uzbekistan, by the way, who don't know,
yes,
Karshi Kanabad Air Base in Uzbekistan. What's the conversations like with other people in general? I mean, is there just a sense of looking around like, holy shit, I can't believe we're doing this, like kind of deal? Or is it, is everybody just focused operationally? Do you remember any of those sort of interactions with teammates and other guys you were with?
Well, like I said, we were going there initially to establish the airfield there and run airfield ops until an Air Force expedition team could come over and take over the airfield for us. So we were studying everything that there was on the runway, which runways we would be using, what the airspace was like, what the Uzbekis had, used. Thankfully, we had Fifth Special Forces Group team on the ground there already that was conducting a FID mission, a FID exercise. Mm-hmm. We had some Air Force members over there that were providing that air to ground interface during that mission. So we had some intel going in, but also, like I said, we were going to establish the combat search and rescue. So it's a combat controller and two PJs with a ground force element, whether that be Navy SEALs, Army Special Forces, Army Rangers, conventional Army uplift, to today to using Air Force cops. So we were kind of deciding between the leadership of the unit and then the leadership of the teams, who and what teams would be established, because we had sent half of our forces down to Pakistan to set up the other task force that was going on down there. We would be Task Force Dagger in the north, and then the other task force in the south. So a lot of the conversation was, kind of everything we had been training up for was, the combat search and rescue, the PJs exercising all their abilities to be the trauma medics, and then the controllers working on, everything air to ground interface, close air support surveys, running the 9 lines, being able to get the medevac in, to looking at the intel reports of if a pilot did eject, where would they eject, what mountain would they be stuck on, the worst case scenario stuff. So it was mission planning the whole way. I mean, a lot of guys got some rack time, and everybody just keeps tweaking their gear. But on the leadership side, in which I was part of the leadership team, we started planning what we were going to do. The unconventional mindset, or the unconventional mission of going in and doing that type of warfare was not even a question to us. It wasn't even an idea to us at the time.
So how quickly do you get from Uzbekistan into actually Afghanistan?
It had been, I think about, we finally got into country around October 1st.
Okay.
After our Spain vacation, and then we attempted, I believe, the night of the 10th or the 11th, And then we attempted again to get in, just weather was not going to let, taking 247s over the Hindu Kush and get into the Panjshir Valley from Uzbekistan was just not going to happen safely. We had to strip all the armor off. Well, not we, but task force had to strip off all the armor off the aircraft. We had to go as light as possible. We were basically given, hey, you can go in with a backpack, then you'll get resupplied later. It was a little bit of time to get in there. But I think it was like the 13th or 14th of October, we finally got in the country. But again, then the mission set changing from unconventional warfare to you're going to be the close air support specialist. What's the likelihood we're going to use close air support? I mean, really think about it. I doubted it. I'm like, man, I'm just going to be the guy turning good food into poop and, carrying all the heavy stuff because that's usually what I end up doing. What is the possibility that, our country, we're actually going to be allowed to release ordnance off of aircraft onto human beings, the enemy, the target, but human beings. Like, what is the agency had been in Afghanistan for 3 years trying to take out bin Laden. They told us when we got in there, hey, we've been trying to do close air support for the last 3 years. And we haven't been able to do it. Clinton didn't allow it. So how are we going to be able to do close air support? So I think there was a lot of doubt in a lot of guys' minds, but once we got in the country, our rules of engagement, and I think you look at it as they said, our leaders told us, hey, you have 6 months to take Bagram and move into Kabul. And we did it in 25 days. And the only way we did that is because our rules of engagement were this.
Wow. Well, from that standpoint, you get near Kabul, and it's October 14th to the end of November in 2001. You guys are on the ground there and just, raising all hell and fury on the Taliban at that point in time. But let's talk about October 21st, 2001 specifically, and the events, what happened, when you get on ground and the arrival of your guys and how you had to lead a close air support recon mission.
Well, we got on the ground. We had good intel from our CIA counterparts and our, them working with the Northern Alliance. We had Russia in 1951 maps. We had probably the best thing, and we briefed this to the DARPA and the DOD afterwards. We had the little yellow Garmin GPS because that was the thing to use at the time instead of the plugger. It was more accurate. But we just got in and, we functioned as a team. I was the close air support specialist. I was the subject matter expert, which not much of an expert at the time. And we just made it happen. We had the confidence and credibility that we earned as teammates. We planned out our missions. We looked and we not only trusted our Northern Alliance counterparts of where the enemy was, but we actually verified where the enemy was. And then we conducted the first close air support missions in Afghanistan and had a devastating effect on the enemy.
How does it all play out, though? I mean, obviously you don't know when you're going to get into contact with the enemy. I mean, obviously you expect it, but kind of break it down for me. Take me through the very beginning of it.
Well, it's an entire team. I mean, you have to go all the way up to the Air Operations Center, the AOC. We had special tactics officers that were working in the AOC that developed their credibility and trust amongst the air planners to actually send aircraft into Afghanistan with a close air support mind that, hey, there are actually Americans on the ground that they will talk to and they will direct them on target. And in the years past, close air support was never the primary training mission of any airborne weapon system. They would either simulate it or they were just so canned on a range that, they knew exactly where they had to put guns or bombs. And so a lot of times when the aircraft showed up, they were very surprised to hear that here's an American team on the ground ready to direct them where to put their guns and bombs. But again, it takes the entire team. I had my team sergeant, Bart Decker, a teammate of mine, Airman Yoshida, good men in positions to build the confidence of those headquarters elements, of those operation centers, the tactical operations center, the air operations center, to let them feel comfortable about pushing aircraft into country, and that there was a team on the ground to conduct close air support. And then amongst my team, having the bona fides and credibility already with the team sergeant, not so much with the team captain. Dan Runyon was not the most spectacular team leader. I'm sure he became a good man, a good husband, and a good team leader afterwards. But him coming right out of the Q course and being forced into the situation he wasn't set up for success. And he had a very experienced team sergeant, even more experienced warrant officer, Dan Diaz, that had been in Afghanistan in the 80s when we were supplying the Afghans with weapons to fight the Russians. He just was not ready for what we were about to do, and unfortunately got relieved of duty. And then the warrant officer took the team over, and you need that team dynamic. Again, you need that critical feedback. So it was just surreal. We worked together as a team. Scott Zastro and Steve Gruel, the medics on the team, became my second and my third on the radio, because they were very good on the radio. And we did close air support 24/7, 7 days a week for 25 days.
Yeah. And your citation talks about over 175 sorties, destroying approximately 450 vehicles and over 3,500 enemy troops. So this is a daily thing that's going on for you, over the course of days and weeks. But your particular experience, I mean, whether it was the first one you called in or whatever, explain just for everybody to sort of paint the picture. Where are you? Where are the guys on ground? How does the conversation go back and forth? And then how do you relay that up to guys way above in an aircraft?
Man, we worked our way down from the Panjshir Valley, got in and around about the Bagram Air Base area, and everybody knows Bagram. I'll tell you what, Bagram was much better when there was only 13 Americans inhabiting it. We didn't have the first sergeant and sergeant major police looking for reflective belts on Disney Highway, but we found that where is a combat controller going to be most at home? That's a certified air traffic controller. Man, the tower. So we took to the tower. The Northern Alliance guys were able to make that area clear. We worked our way to the tower. We had the advantage over the enemy. The enemy was just on the other side of the runway, just a couple hundred meters away, and that was the Taliban strong point. That was their front line, and the west side of the airfield was the Northern Alliance front line. And then we just, systematically through strike aircraft, bomb key positions of Taliban strong points and Taliban headquarters elements and Taliban C2 elements and Taliban convoys coming up the John Wayne Pass from Kabul. And then the CIA asked me, hey, how can we be more effective? And we asked and asked and asked for a B-52 strike or a B-1 strike, and we kept getting denied by higher headquarters.
Why?
Well, because, a B-52, we're going to use a nuclear delivering vehicle to drop bombs, in a close air support mission. I just don't think the trust had been established yet, because by this time we had second, third, fourth, ODAs going in, not as successful with their close air support mission because they did not have an Air Force combat controller, an Air Force TAC-P with them. We had an accident with an Air Force TAC-P calling in a strike on their own target, on their own coordinates. So there wasn't, you build trust through credibility, and having the director of of the CIA and Afghanistan operations at the time, co-located right with me in the tower, and telling him, hey, we need bomber support. And for him to have the ability to call the president and ask that, I'm sure I pissed a lot of people off by doing that. But that night we had B-52s, and then we were able to call in B-52 with hundreds of thousands of pounds of bombs, dumb bombs, not smart bombs, dumb bombs, Vietnam era war bombs, on there. But our team was, we had established, that we knew what we were doing. We knew the coordinates. We had, everything working for us, and we would just decimate the enemy that way. And all things considered, we were a mission that was successful with no injuries, no loss of life of friendly, either American or Northern Alliance. We had some really close calls, but one of my friends just said to me, one of my executive director for Project OVAT, Lyle Rosine, said to me at this last event, he goes, man, you are always the calm in the storm. And Mark, that goes right back to what you said in the beginning, man. If anybody was ever to give me a compliment, badass would not be the compliment because I'm a fat ass. It would be calm during a storm, and I used to brief that as a command chief. My job is to make you feel comfortable when it's uncomfortable. And that's just what it's all about. Be comfortable when it's uncomfortable, or be the calm in the storm. And that's how we did it. We execute it and we operate it with professionalism.
Again, it's so hard when it's 175 sorties. So again, it's impossible. They all must run together at some point. But still, the idea of knowing that you are sort of the angel on the shoulder of people on the ground, and they literally depend on you for their own security and safety, is a awesome but nearly incredible responsibility. And that calm that you talked about is certainly required. Did we have the technology at that point in time to watch the strikes as they hit? Were you able to see everything land as you were firing it, or calling for it rather?
Yeah, through a scope. We had no ability the stuff that the guys and the ladies have today is just absolutely incredible. Right. I am so glad they have that to make war, more effective. But no, the agency had predators and drones with that they could watch what was going on. And in the case of John Chapman's Medal of Honor stuff, one of the first and only actions of on the objective that were Medal of Honor actions that were recorded. But no, we on the ground didn't have the ability to see anything from above. This is all back to sniper scope technology of looking through the scope and seeing where the target is, and using a laser rangefinder to identify it, marking its location, the distance and direction back to our location, and establishing coordinates, a 10-digit coordinate where it was at. I mean, shoot, if we had all that, if we would have had all the technology we have now back then, that would have been about a 3-day fight.
Wow. Unreal. When do you find out that you're getting the Silver Star for everything you guys did?
I was not awarded the Silver Star until 2004.
Okay.
Decorations don't. I
get it. I get it. I'm just for the audience sake. It's there's not a whole lot of them passed out with good reason, right? They don't hand them out like candy. It's not Halloween. So from that standpoint,
it was 2004. It was, we were the quiet professionals, and the stuff we did, we signed a non-disclosure at the time when we came out of the field and went into isolation. And Joan Jett was playing over there for the USO. In fact, we were still such a secret deal that, Joan Jett had to come into our isolation tent and, perform a quick acoustic, performance for us, and completely appreciated that. I mean,
what song did she play?
To get to meet Joan Jett.
What song did she play?
Oh my gosh. Well, her voice was really hoarse from doing the USO concert, but she just sang like, just a couple little tunes. I don't really remember the tunes, but just meeting her was really incredible because she was such an amazing woman, and to hear her story and what she had been through, and then to come over there, to volunteer to come over there, at the height of the war, basically, that really said a lot about her. But we all signed non-disclosure act, NDAs, and later, a few months later, we deployed back to our units, and we rekit, got ready to, kick ass and, keep sending people in. 2003 came up. It was the height of Iraq, and I had moved into a different position. I moved into being a trainer for our advanced course. So I was getting the guys coming right out of combat control school and, getting them their advanced certification so they could go over to Afghanistan or Iraq and be effective. And then just started speaking up in the Pentagon and DC about why we needed better equipment. The Air Force kind of made me their poster child and just said, we need you to go in front of the Senate Arms Committee and talk about what you did, because if you become so secret and you're behind that glass, you don't get funding. And that's what my opinion, never being at a JSOC unit, my opinion, is, that's why you see more about some of the stuff behind the curtain, because if you don't advertise that, or you don't show the capability to the people that write the checks, then you don't get money. And that's why we have that equipment. That's why we have the ability to see, C2 elements can direct and execute a mission from hundreds and thousands of miles away, because they can look down at that target, because there were people like Rick Driggers who were up on Capitol Hill, fighting to get us money and working with technology units to get us that equipment to make, batteries lighter, radios lighter, laser rangefinders more accurate, GPS is more accurate. The guys complain about, the body armor and all this stuff. It's too heavy. And I'm like, man, you got it so easy now. But if we don't continue to develop ourselves, professionally and privately, we become an extinct force. And so it's good to see that that's happening, but it took some time. And then this all of a sudden, my leadership said, hey, your Silver Star was approved. And I was kind of taken back, because I don't think what I did was worthy of Silver Star action or Silver Star gallantry. I just did my job, and I did my job to the best of my ability with the 12 other teammates that I was assigned to. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here. Man, I just like to think that we all had each other's back, and I completely appreciate it, but it's something that wasn't expected or did I think I deserved.
Throughout your career, you talk about other operations that you went on: Iraqi Freedom, Resolute Support, Freedom Sentinel, Joint Endeavor, Provide Promise. I mean, countless other special operations missions that you go on. Does anything compare to that first one, just from a standpoint of this is what you signed up to be a combat controller for, and you actually got to do it and kick ass at it? Does anything else kind of raise to that level throughout the rest of your career?
Yeah, Mark, I think I think you hit the key phrase there is compare. So yeah, when you were a young captain, what did you think, when you were there doing the mission and everything, and there was something you didn't have or a resource you didn't have, and you're like, man, what is the leadership thinking about? How many times did you think that? Like, what's wrong with the leadership, and what are they thinking about? Mm-hmm. So yeah, the comparison is getting to do my job as a combat controller and earning some of that respect or some of that credibility with my peers, and getting written about a couple things in some books, and but just being with those teammates, man, that was an experience that I'll never forget. That is something that honed my soul, or honed me as a human being, or as an operator. But I wanted to take that, and rather than, some guys maybe let it go to their head, or, now they're going to go write books and they're going to live off what they did. Man, I don't care what I did or anybody else did yesterday or today. I care about what you're going to do tomorrow. And so I used that fury and that fight to become a chief master sergeant. I used that fury and that fight to become a command chief, because when I was that tech sergeant out in the field and I didn't have the equipment or the resources, or didn't get approved for the training because one, it was either too expensive, or somebody saying, well, if it comes down to you shooting, then you did a horrible job. You weren't the combat controller you should have been. Man, I wanted to take all that anger and all that fight of everything that I couldn't have, or I didn't have the resources to have, and become that chief, become that command chief, be that ear in that commander's, that voice in that commander's ear to say, this is what the guys need. This is what the gals need. This is our job as leaders, is to get the resources for those individuals to go do their job. And if we're not doing that, then we don't fucking need to be here.
Right.
And all that other stuff after that, man, that was the icing on the cake. Was I would love to hear anybody out there, anybody that was in my leadership team, or anybody that was part of any group or wing that I was in. And if they have one compliment, it's that they were able to get the resources and the time they needed to do their job effectively, more effectively, while myself and my commander were with them.
Yeah, no, and I certainly understand that. And from the standpoint of, I mean, that was part of my job while I deployed for the first time, was to support all the Green Berets and get them everything they needed to stay in the fight. And, I always say, and I think you kind of understand the same thing as being part of a team. The biggest, you don't realize it when you're going through it, like how pivotal the job is, because you're just doing the job. But in retrospect, when you get away from it, I just didn't want to let anybody down. I just didn't want to be the point of failure, or the source of, or the reason why something couldn't be completed. And that extends well beyond, having someone six with a rifle in my hand. There's a lot of other ways that you can be a single point of failure that make things more difficult. And I just got up every day and worked as hard as I could, because I did not want to be ever looked at by any of those guys as the reason something didn't happen. I wanted to be looked at as the guy that, we don't get by without his support kind of guy.
And I think it's, I think back in the day, even, I remember one time being a senior NCO and telling a group of airmen that, at a professional military education environment, where I had every walk of life airman there. And I talked about, things I did wrong as a human, as a man, as a NCO, as an airman, as a father, as a husband. And I remember getting feedback from the commandant, and was like, you never admit your failures in front of everybody and in front of anyone. And I'm like, go fuck yourself, man. I have so many failures. And just like you said, I've been that single point of failure too many times to my daughter, to my wife, to my family, to my friends, to coworkers. And I think that makes us, stronger. And if you're not able to admit that, man, how are you going to get better without that critical feedback? It's like shooting steel. If you don't hear that ping, you missed. And so if you can't accept your failure and get stronger from it, pick your fucking panties up and drive on. That's what makes us better.
Absolutely. So again, I'm fast forwarding through a lot, but how do you know your career is over after 30 years? Did the Air Force tell you, or you decided on your own?
Yeah, people told me. No, I mean, in the Air Force, it's you get up to the level of being a command chief, and I served at the the '06 level. I got to do a 14-month deployment down in Afghanistan as the senior enlisted leader for, the air component. The Air Force saw off all air and, all special tactics downrange. And that was the highlight of my career. I didn't, unless I was going to be the Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force or go serve at some 3 or 4 star level, in the Air Force, it's really rare to go beyond 30 years. And it was time. That 14 months in Afghanistan was hard. That's 7 days a week, 18-hour days. The only time you have off is when you come back for your midterm leave. And then that even makes it tougher going back, because you're like, why am I doing this? Why am I putting my family through this? And I realized that I love the military. I love my brothers and sisters in arms. But at that point, when I came home for my last year in a position, I realized I was showing up every day to make donuts that were never, ever going to get made.
Right.
And I self-identified and said, yeah, I am no longer useful. I am no longer productive. It is time for me to punch out, because you see those officers and those senior NCOs that you look at them and go, man, you should have got out a few years ago. I didn't want to be that. And I wanted to get into a nonprofit world that would help our veterans and their families, and use some of my speaking ability, some of my connections, to raise money and do good things for those families. And so I knew when it was time. I think we all do. Some people don't. But I had some good leaders go, hey, we think it's time for you to retire.
Honestly, that is the best conversation that you don't want to have, but that every real leader wants somebody to tell them.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm at the point again, I'm coming up on 23 years, and I've said it repeatedly. The minute I am no longer of value to the organization, somebody tell me, right? Just sit down and deliver the news to me. It's not the end of the world. I know you think it's a hard conversation to have, but in reality, if I respect you and you respect me, it's not a difficult conversation to have.
Yeah.
And after all these years, after all the time that you've put in, all you want to do is be treated like an adult and not a child. And it's really okay to say, you know what, Will, it's time to move on. It's time to move on to the next phase of your life, man. You're going to be okay. You've done some amazing things, but guess what? It's time. Life is phases, and it's okay to have that conversation. And I really wish we would have more leaders in our organization who are willing to say that, because we let people hang on for so long, and we're afraid to tell them, dude, go pound sand, go enjoy retirement, go bake cookies, go play with your kids, go do something other than what you're doing right now. But we work in a transitional organization, whether it's just command, whether it's a job, whether it's a post. It just moves. Every 2 or 3 years, everything moves. Yet when someone gets to 25 years, we're afraid to tell them, dude, time to go.
Yeah.
It's the worst phenomenon I've ever seen.
Yeah. As a young chief, and I don't want to say young chief, but as a brand new chief and, command chief, I had to have that conversation with, some of the lieutenant colonels and some of the, aging former enlisted majors, and, some 06s that were just trying to hang on for that star, and you knew they were never, ever going to get there. And the same goes on the enlisted side. There were tech sergeants that just, squeaked it out to 20 E6s and some E8s and E9s that, we don't call them by their rank, because they were an E8 or E9, and man, they should have left a little bit ago. But I was fortunate, like you said, Mark, I had that person, I had that mentor in my ear going, Charlie Mike, it's time.
Yeah.
And I respected that, and I pushed the button that day.
Yep. You don't have to tell me twice. I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah.
I'm smart enough to hear it the first time.
We got such, everybody's so worried about the next generation. They're not as hard, and they don't know, man. I look at some of the people I still stay in contact with that are E9s now, and they were, E6s, E5s, and they're freaking rock stars, and they're so smart. They got double master's degrees. They got PhDs. I mean, we have the smartest, most intelligent force coming up behind us that I'm afraid that if I had to go back through as a young person, I wouldn't be a combat controller. I'm not smart enough to make it.
Yeah.
I was too dumb to feel pain, but I'm definitely not smart enough to make it through what these young men and women are going through now, man. It is just amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
After you got out, now allow me here, I'm not going to, try to make you feel too uncomfortable, but in 2018, you were inducted to the United States Air Force Gathering of Eagles 2021 Air Commando Association Hall of Fame and the U.S. Special Operations Command Commando Hall of Honor inductee. So obviously, congrats. And again, that speaks to what you accomplished over 30 years. And I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention that as part of everything else that you have done in your career. But now it's post-career, and you've dedicated your life to helping veterans. Again, you were former director of operations for the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, currently the CEO and founder of Project One Vet at a Time, and the executive director of the Patriot Fund. So let's focus on Project One Vet at a Time as you founded it. What's the genesis of it? Why was this baby born? And what are we trying to accomplish with it?
Well, it was, if I can ask, you receive some type of VA compensation and pension, correct? I
do, yes. I am in the midst of fighting with the VA right now for a whole variety of different things.
Okay. So I believe you were probably one of those guys when you got out, and you had your VA brief and you did your CNP, your compensation and pension examinations. You probably went into those and said, man, I've avoided the flight surgeon. I've avoided the doc my entire career because I wanted to be able to stay on target. And so when I went to those, I was like, I'm good.
Yeah. No, well,
and they say
full disclosure, I after my first deployment, where a lot of my injuries and everything stemmed from, I just want to go home. Like, I'm done. Like, I don't need to talk to you. I just want to go home. I'm done with this. I need a break. And it was after my second deployment that I had to go to the VA for something. I forget what it was. And when I tell you, Will, that I would not even be on disability today if the sweetest, nicest lady at the Baltimore VA did not literally hold my hand and walk me through the entire building to stop at this desk and that desk, fill out this thing, fill out that thing. And she did everything for me. If she doesn't do it, I'm not even on disability today. That's how I got where I am.
Yeah.
She told me, you need to do this right now. She's like, what do you have to do right now? I'm like, I don't know. She said, you're going to stay here. We're going to go through this whole thing together until you're done. Listen, the VA get banged around a lot, but every now and then you find that diamond in the rough, and she was certainly one of them.
Yeah, and the VA is filled with incredible people. Yes. I mean, there are just incredible people there, and I think what the stem of the issue is we're so used to having everything done for us, and when we get out, we actually have to do something. And man, a lot of the guys and gals don't follow through with stuff, and that's where stuff gets fall between the cracks. But the biggest thing was I retired, got my rating. With all the things that had happened to me and that were wrong with me physically, psychologically, finally, able to admit some of the psychological stuff I'm going through. I just said, man, I'm having a hard time. And I got out with 100%. It wasn't total and permanent. But then 18 months later, I went for another VA appointment, a checkup. And in 7 minutes, a nurse determined that I had gotten better because I had a good day that day. And a couple months later, I receive a letter from the VA, and it says, you've been reduced to 30%. So now my healthcare is gone. My compensation and pension that's added to my retirement is gone. And I accepted it at first. I was like, oh, well, I guess that's where I should be. And I found out this happened a lot to our veterans, into veterans that were in much worse shape than I was. And then I found out that there's law firms and there's services out there that will help you. And they say they don't charge, but they do. And if there's any type of back pay you get, they take a portion of that back pay. If there's any increase in your compensation and pension, then they will take a portion of that until they feel your bill has been paid. And I just thought that was absolutely criminal. It took me a year to reach out to some very close friends, Jeff O'Hara, Dr. Mark McLaughlin, Ed Hockley, to ask for help. and to take the fight to the enemy, which at the time, in my eyes, was the VA. Later, I found it was actually myself who did that detriment to myself. And we fought the VA. We had a hearing, and the hearing was a conversation. And it was so simple. It was so simple for something, they made it so hard. We made it so hard. And it was so simple for them to look at me and go, yep, this was a clear and unmistakable error. We'll increase your benefits back up to 100%. In fact, your total and permanent, you probably won't ever have to worry about this again. And that evening, we had a good glass of scotch. and I was emotional. I was sobbing because all I could think about was all the other people out there. Mark, yourself, you're one of them. You're one of them. That this is something so simple that could be fixed, but the bureaucratic process is making it so hard. And if you try to go ask for help somebody, they're going to charge you for it, which is criminal in itself. And if you don't know how to dot the I's and cross the T's, you could end up taking a reduction. And so these people sat around me and they said, fucking do something about it.
It's amazing.
So we started this. And so we're a nonprofit. We're a 501c3. 57 veterans have gone through our program. Every single one of them have been increased to the point where they should be of what they earn and deserve. It doesn't mean they're 100%.
Right.
But we've helped Vietnam vets. We've helped Gulf War vets. We've helped vets that have fought the VA for years and years. We've gotten veterans back pay in excess of $100,000 to $200,000. Wow. And we didn't take a dime. We cover every expense that it takes to flying them out to see a specialist, to making sure their records get copied. We walk them through the process, and we have a great legal team that we work with, and we have a great medical consultant that we work with. In fact, my medical consultant is Scott Zastro, the 18 Delta that I was on the team triple nickel with. Like, how can I not trust that brother in arms to help our veterans through this fight? And man, we get our veterans to what they deserve and what they have earned every single time. And it's a process, but man, not one penny comes out of their pocket. If they get any type of back pay, not one penny comes out of their pocket, because we and my team are good at talking to people with money that want to help our veterans. And man, every single of those dollars that come in go to supporting those vets. We do this voluntarily. And man, I'm going to put it out there. And this is probably the first time in public I'll put it out there. But if you're a retired officer or senior enlisted leader that is working for a veteran nonprofit, and you're one of those officers in those nonprofit and you're receiving a salary, you're fucking wrong, because this is still your charter as a leader to help our veterans and their families. And you should be doing this for free. So every single one of them fucking dollars that comes into that nonprofit goes to helping those vets. And this is probably, yep, Mark, this is it. This is the first time I have said this in public. I've said this to a lot of people, but this is the first time I've said this in public. And if you're not doing that for free and making sure that our veterans get what they earn and deserve, whether it be education, disability, compensation, pension, housing for our homeless vets, if you're collecting a salary and you're working for a nonprofit, you're wrong.
Wow.
Because we do this voluntarily. And it's still our charge as officers and as senior NCOs to do this.
I mean, just powerful words. And the passion comes through, and I certainly see it, and obviously can hear it. And what you guys are doing at Project One Vet at a Time is exactly the kind of organization that we need out there. And as I go through this process with the VA, and I've started to learn what, quote, VA math is.
The donculator.
Yeah, I don't, so, I mean, like, it's one of those things where people who are wondering, who are not military, we're chuckling about, but like, you can get 50% disability for one thing and 50% disability for another thing. And guess what? You're not 100% disabled, right? Like, so just understand that is VA math at its finest. And I'm learning that the hard way right now. But again, we'll have to talk offline about all that. So after Project One Vet, you're also the executive director of the Patriot Fund. More on that, please.
Yeah, and Mark, just one thing back to Project OVAT. So we're a referral system, and that's the way I find that bona fides, credibility, and all that. That's how you find good people, and you surround yourself with good people. So Project One Vet at a time isn't something you apply for. You can look at our website. Our website is designed just to get people to come and donate, and that's what we want. The way we take on our veterans is we put a veteran through the program, and if they like what we did for them, we require two things of them. We require a testimonial, so we can tell other people about the stuff we're doing. And then we require a name, because every single one of us knows somebody that's hurting and somebody that isn't where they deserve and earn. And so they give us the name of that individual and we bring them on. And so, Mark, I would like to bring you on to Project OVAT. We would like to take a look at your case, and we would like to get you to where you have earned and deserved.
Well, thank you. I'm humbled, and I certainly appreciate it. And again, we'll talk more offline. But again, It's Project OVAT, OV as in Victor, AT.org. Project OVAT.org. If you guys want more information, go there. And I mean, again, it's you learn a lot when you go through this. And part of me realizes why I waited after. It's 2021. 2012 is when I first started, and it took 19 months for my first initial thing to come through. I know why I've waited, another 8 years before I even tried again. And part of it, honestly, is, and obviously there's a lot of things, in my personal story that, we can reserve for another time. But, as you realize where you are and things, but as I'm coming to the end of my military career, I wanted to do it now, before I officially ended my career, when I still had access to a lot of things and systems that were right at my fingertips, that if they asked for a document, I could easily get access to it, not have to chase it down. So that was part of it. I'm starting to realize that I'm at the end of my career. It's, if I get one more promotion left, fingers crossed, God willing, it'll probably be it, and it'll be sayonara for this old guy. But that was part of the reason why I wanted to do this now where I am, but it did take a long time to get there. So I encourage everybody, don't wait. I mean, there's always reasons to put this stuff off, but it's organizations like Project One Vet at a time that, that really are the sort of nudge we need. To use an airborne analogy, it's the kick in the middle of the back out the door, right? That you need to get out of the aircraft. And once you start falling, you're like, okay, we're not going to stop till we get on the ground, kind of deal. So it's the best analogy I could come up with.
Yeah.
But anyway, go back to the Patriot Fund, because there's more there as well.
Exactly as the title says, man, it's the Patriot Fund. We fund patriots, and we're basically, I don't know, my president and, my board that is above me. I'm kind of the colorful person on the team, because the Patriot Fund stood up as the Patriot Fund Invitational up in New Jersey. And it was a great event. It was a golf event. And when I was with the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, which has an incredible mission, man, putting, the kids of fallen special operators and, anybody under the SOCOM umbrella, putting them through college and making sure they get the education they need to become better humans. And, that's what their father or mother would have wanted. But that was one of our main supporters, was the Patriot Fund. And, group of individuals, wealth managers and, retired generals and team owners. And they just wanted to do good things for patriots. And they wanted to make sure that the money they were raising was going to good causes. And as I broke away from the foundation and stood up Project OVAT with my team, the good men and women there at the Patriot Fund said, "Hey, we're behind you. We believe in the mission you're doing. In fact, we want to find more veteran nonprofits that are doing what you're doing." And so right now, currently, I think we're right at 23 veteran nonprofits that we support. And we have a due diligence committee that's run by retired Major General Steve Hashem. And man, he's the bulldog. He's the bulldog on the team. He gets in these veteran nonprofits books and records, and he wants to know what the salaries are, and he wants to know what the budgets are. And, you hear the term, 93 cents of every dollar goes to, that's all bullshit. That's all bullshit, man. There's operational costs, but, and it takes money to run a nonprofit, and you have to pay people. We pay consultants to do our medical stuff. We pay consultants to do our legal stuff. We pay an accountant to keep us legal, to keep us right. Things like that cost money. But to presidents and CEOs and these executive officers that are just collecting these outrageous salaries, man, that that money could be used so much better. And these individuals are high-end individuals that can go off and they can do consulting jobs, and they can have other jobs where they're supporting their family. I get it. You need to support your family, but man, let's call a spade, and let's get the money to where the money needs to go, into those agencies that are going to support those veterans. And so we look at the veteran organizations we support, and, they don't have, they're mom and pop operations working out of, garages and, spare bedrooms at our offices. And, they're doing everything they can to make sure that from homeless vets to canine service dogs to education to, just doing good things for veterans and their families, and that due diligence, committee makes sure we pick the right ones. And so when these high-end donors want to come to us and say, I want to make sure my money is going to the veteran organizations, I am interested in a canine service dog, organization. A lot of times we direct the money directly to those organizations, but we provide fundraisers across the nation. We raise money. We just had a big Veterans Day event down in Naples, Florida. We raised just about $360,000. We supported 4 organizations locally there that will directly benefit. And then that the rest of the money goes back into our organization, so we can pump that out across these organizations. And at the end of the year, we provide a disbursement check to these organizations that, man, they're counting on us. Their operations count on the check that we're going to give them. And man, it's just such a great thing when you hear these success stories of a service dog getting named after a fallen teammate that is, this guy's been waiting, or this gal's been waiting in line to get a service dog, and they're maybe on the verge of suicide. And man, that organization gets to give this individual a call and say, hey man, we got the money. Like we just got paid, so we can get you into the program, and we can get you and keep you alive and keep you highly functionable and keep your family happy, man. There's just no better thing. And so, Mark, I'm sorry, a long answer to your question, but the Patriot Funds, it is exactly what it says, man. It is a fund for patriots.
It's 100%. I mean, it's a big part of why certain VSOs are successful. And so from that standpoint, it's really important to hear about what they do and how they can help and things of that nature. But look, I mean, 30 years in uniform, doing one of the toughest jobs that the military has to offer. And in the post years since that, taking on other tough jobs that the veteran space has to offer is clearly par for the course for your mentality and your entire career. So I'm glad we got people like you in the position that we do right now, fighting for what's right, fighting for people who can't fight for themselves or don't know how to fight for themselves, and giving them the roadmap and the way ahead. And the energy that you have is contagious, and I kind of want to run through a wall here after hearing all this. So, but that said, again, man, it's been great talking to you and hearing everything about your experience and everything you went through. And at the same time, that command chief comes out in you, but it comes with the perfect amount of humility and understanding about your role and being part of a team. And I don't think that ever loses you. That doesn't ever go away from you. That's always sort of the foundation for everything that you do in your career. And so even if you're screaming and yelling, it's all for the right reason. I think that's fantastic, man. It really is.
Excellent, Mark. I truly appreciate this time, and man, we gotta help our veterans. It's tougher now, and it's going to get tighter in budgets. It's going to get harder to get compensation and pension and these benefits that these men and women have earned and deserved. And it's not, and by them getting it, they're not taking it away from anybody else. And that's the mentality, of a lot of our guys and gals are like, well, I don't need it. I got a good job. I don't need it. I don't want to take it away from somebody else. You're not taking it away from somebody else. It is a benefit. It is a right that you have earned by serving our country. And by goddamn, we're going to get it to you.
And not only that, it's just kind of short-sighted in that sense. Like right now, you might not need it, but what about 15 years down the road when something in your body or your health takes a turn for the worse, or your life takes a turn for the worse? there's that's not the time you want to be trying to take care of it, and so, because I thought the same way.
The harder it's going to be.
I thought the same way after. I'm like, I don't need it. I'm fine. There are other people, people have missing limbs and everything. Go help those people. I'm fine. And then you realize as you get a little bit older, a little more life experience, that fine is always a relative term. And things are going to change around you, and circumstances are going to get beyond your control. And you're foolish not to take advantage of what you said as a benefit that you have earned, that we all have earned. And there's value in that, and we shouldn't not take advantage of it just because we don't feel like we need it. But again, just an incredible career. I certainly appreciated the time. Love talking to you and love your honesty and your passion. And it's been amazing getting to learn about everything that you've done in your career. It's hard to encapsulate 30 plus years in uniform in the time that we did. So I hope we did that part of service, but I certainly know we did your post-military career life of service as well. So again, thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well, Markham,
to you and your team, thank you.
Well, Markham, thanks for being part of the Hazard Ground.
You've been listening to Killcliff's Hazard Ground podcast, hosted by Mark Zeno. If you have an interesting story to tell and you'd like to be on the show, send us an email at producer@hazardground.com. And if you like the show, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.